Yeah, the first thing I wanted to ask you is if you could just tell us your name and how you like to be addressed.
Okay, my name is Susan Overstreet, and Susan's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Why do I make art? I can't imagine not making art. As a child, my mother was an artist, so there was always art supplies. She would give me, or I would sneak out of the closet, the smell of the oil paint. So I started very young and always did art in school. And, you know, it just was kind of this natural thing. And then I went to school for something else because I had other interests, but always came back to art. I wanted to be an ambassador, so I went for international relations. And then as soon as I was out of school, went back to the Corcoran School of Art. And then when my children were young, I started painting again. And all the mothers in the neighborhood wanted me to teach their children. So it started as art camps in my house, which destroyed the back deck. So then I started teaching at the public schools in Fairfax County, and then in an art center, and just really got back into painting. Then went back to politics because I wanted to, you know, my kids were grown, I wanted to get a real job. And I was actually teaching politics, American politics, for about 7, 8 years. And then finally I had to get back to art. I moved to the Cape, full-time artist, and it's been absolutely wonderful to just devote myself completely. One of the good things coming out of the pandemic was this exploration into abstract art. And I just love it. I'm very influenced by the American abstract expressionists and figurative expressionists. I always push the color. That's what I see. And then the freedom of just not having a subject really in front of you. Sometimes I just want to get the paint. It's about the paint, moving the paint around the canvas, see what happens. A lot of times a figure will appear. And then if I do have a subject, if I do have the figure in front of me, I'm tending to make it more abstracted, make it more about the emotion. A friend of mine was modeling for me, and she just took this, she put her leg up, and it was a great pose, and I cut it quickly, and then I kind of left it because I liked what I had. Here's the great dilemma, right? When to stop. And so I'm wanting to finish it, but not make it any too detailed, just, you know it's a figure in there. And kind of keep to this palette. You know, again, I want that feeling of movement, so I don't want it to be stiff. So right now I'm trying to I'm editing everything, right? You start off and you're putting a lot of paint down, and then it becomes more and more, you have to be more and more careful as you approach the end here. A lot of thought before every jab there with the palette knife.
Who do you consider your greatest artistic influence?
That's a great question, because it used to be Van Gogh, very much so, and it's still Van Gogh. You know, Van Gogh and Cézanne, I would say, from that post-impressionist era. You know, Monet, of course. But even I think it's the inventors, Nadine. Even like a Leonardo da Vinci. He kind of was an innovator. Well, he was a scientist. And he was very experimental with what he was doing. And then you come up, you know, the Impressionists, of course, and then going outside, you know, seeing the light different and the colors of nature. It's such a breakthrough. And, of course, Van Gogh and the emotions, you know, he put into his paintings. The brush strokes. I always say it's the experiment, not what you're going to end up with, not trying to make some polished product. I was in the Museum of Modern Art in New York, came around the corner, and I had seen Pollock's before in my life. I just stood there, and literally I felt like I was flying in space. And I'm like, oh, I finally get it. I finally get what he was doing. And I realized I was standing about as far as, you know, he was throwing the paint. That's how far I was from the painting. I'm like, oh, okay, now I get him. I get this, you know. And
And now de Kooning, I keep looking at the work of de Kooning and the freedom of those strokes and the color palette he was using. And he was starving in these lofts, and they were only doing it for the art, before they became well known. And I love his work. De Kooning, Pollock, it's good stuff. It's so American, like jazz is so American.
You feel it because the pandemic is like nobody knows where things are going?
Yes. Yeah, like things were kind of shattered. All these different things went out in different directions, that we were doing. And everyone's like wanting to get back to normal. Like, really? Like, can't we get back to something different or move forward to something better? And how do we put the pieces back together? And I think always there was this tendency toward abstraction, but being alone and with the time to explore it, and I think a lot of people did this. They took a lot of courses online or read, or, everybody's been kind of, what's really important? What do we leave? What do civilizations leave behind that's most important? It's the art, architecture, music, food, cuisine. It's all these things that are very creative. And I think people are becoming, hopefully, more creative and valuing that more than we did. I studied political philosophy. And so to me, if you live in an environment, a democracy, don't you want to keep it? We don't know what we have. Okay. What I want to say is this is a beautiful world. Let's value it. And together do what we need to do. Together. We can't do it alone. Nobody can do it alone. So, all right. Maybe... I think deep down, that's what motivates me as an artist. A record of your life, it's a record of your life. And a record of the times and how you viewed it and what was important to you.